Host in Chess Homes reaction. This is Rappers Who Went Broke in the Stupidest Ways by channel Sunny V2. From Birdman to DMX to 50 Cent to Scott Storch. These are the rappers who have actually gone broke in the stupidest ways possible. Alright. Okay, first of all, writing from this to this should imply some kind of a scale. I don't even know what scale from Birdman to DMX to 50 Cent. Is that a scale? Okay, DMX is one of my favorite rappers from the list, right? DMX was really good, and I know in the his last years were not as kind. I don't know why. I never really researched in that way, but I guess this video will tell me. 50 Cent, I guess we know about 50 Cent. 50 Cent for being 50 Cent. He lost some money there. I guess he gained some, right? He was more like a, he was investing in a lot of different places recently, right? And he got good enough money now. He's at that place, so yeah. But I don't know about other ones, so it's gonna be interesting, not fun. I was about to say it's gonna be fun like I used to, but yeah, this is not gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting, so let's watch it.
Bankruptcy, 50 Cent was spending $108,000 per month to rent an 18-bedroom mega mansion, while T-Pain's bankruptcy was so brutal that by the end of it, he had to borrow money just to buy Burger King.
His bankruptcy was so brutal, his teeth got yellow.
About DMX, who had to file for bankruptcy on 3 separate occasions as he couldn't afford child support. You see, DMX had 17 children with 11 different women, and almost every child resulted in some kind of lawsuit or child support requirement. For example, DMX was sued for $1.5 million worth of child support in 2008 after a genetic test confirmed that he was the father of a previously unclaimed baby, which when combined with his declining music career, resulted in his first bankruptcy filing. 4 years later in 2012, DMX was sued by a different ex-partner for a further $1 million worth of child support, and a year after this lawsuit, he'd file for bankruptcy a second time. His third bankruptcy would occur in 2016, during which it would be decided.
Look, here's what I don't understand about child support, right? I mean, someone can get child support which is like in thousands. Someone else has to give child supports in millions. I mean, isn't the whole concept of that being, you need certain money to support a child in certain environment? So how is it someone can support someone's child in few thousands while other has to give millions just because someone's rich? I mean, it's about the heritage, and you fighting for your heritage. Like, I'm the son. I deserve a certain portion of his wealth or something. That would be a different case. But child support, how does that make sense? I don't know. I always hear Billboard's voice in my head whenever I see something like this.
Discovered that DMX had racked up a further $1.7 million worth of unpaid child and family support, which accompanied $950,000 in bank debt and $1.7 million worth of tax debt. Since he had $0 in his bank account, DMX was sentenced to 6 months in prison for the child support, a further year in prison for the unpaid taxes, and was also ordered to pay the government $2.29 million in restitution after he was released from his time behind bars. However, DMX never had the chance to pay the amount back in full, as he'd die in April 2021, and despite his extensive family tree, DMX never wrote a will, meaning that his family was still involved in money-related legal battles even after he was dead and buried. Tyga was certainly better at managing his child support payments, although he definitely had a weakness when it came to luxury spending. After cultivating his career as a successful rapper, Tyga's name entered news headlines after he'd purchased a $200,000 Mercedes Maybach for his girlfriend, while being $480,000 behind in rental payments on a luxury Malibu home. As a result, Tyga was sued by his landlord, although he'd failed to show up to court as he was on holiday in Turks and Caicos. Yet this situation wasn't the only example of Tyga spending big in one area while being financially behind in another. For example, in 2016, while shopping for a new Bentley, Tyga's Ferrari 458 was repossessed in the parking lot as Tyga hadn't been paying for the loan. Despite this, Tyga would—
Alright, this happens to rapper a lot, right? There's been song from Kanye West and many things who just talks about these old white rich people who don't spend money while we spend money. Apparently, old white rich people know what the fuck they're doing, apparently. Because if you have 10 millions and you spend like 4 millions in luxuries, I think those ratios are frightening, let's just say. A billionaire spending 1 billion on a Bugatti makes sense. Somebody who has 10 million and buys 3 Bugattis, how does that make sense? I mean, this is all fucked up. Massive mansion, he's renting it. Man, buy it when you have money. At least you keep it, for fuck's sake. Renting it for 100,000, 200,000 a month or something. What the fuck, man? That's just ridiculous. But see, this is where, again, Bill Burr, the wise Bill Burr comes to my mind, where he was talking about Tiger Woods. Like, you can't know what their mentality is at that place, right? He was talking about how, Tiger Woods cheated and how there are Scandinavian women in buses and whatever. The analogy makes sense here that when you're at that level, when you're that famous, when your records are selling at that level, you don't know what your mentality is. So it's easy to sit here and just judge these people, but you don't know what the psychology is behind them. But still, they could have, some of their accountant could have been, just chill out.
Gone to purchase another Mercedes Maybach, as well as a Land Rover, a Rolls-Royce Ghost, and a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, all of which were repossessed for non-payment, while he was seen looking at a brand new Lamborghini. In addition to this, Tyga was sued by a second landlord for $181,000 after once again missing rental payments in 2016, which was followed by a third property-related lawsuit in 2020, where Tyga had racked up over $200,000 in damages and unpaid rent on yet another rental property. It was then revealed that Tyga was being court ordered to pay for $200,000 worth of unpaid jewelry, which accompanied the accusation by his ex-girlfriend Black China that he'd been missing child support payments. And just to add a cherry on top of the cake, while all of this was going down, Tyga was in $890,000 worth of tax debt to the government. Despite all of this, Tyga is still seen flexing a lavish life on social media, which is a luxury unavailable to rap producer Scott Storch, who blew through $70 million in less than 3 years. Scott had earned this money by producing for some of the biggest names in music, including Kanye West, Dr. Dre, and Jay-Z. Yet Scott Storch's insane net worth began to diminish after he'd purchased an insane supercar collection,
30 cars, including Bugattis and Ferraris and all that kind of stuff,
as well as a $10.5 million mansion where he housed more than 20 staff, including a boat captain, just in case he wanted to go out on his yacht.
So the captain was on full-time staff?
Yeah.
In case you want to take the boat out?
Yeah.
And the boat was how many bedrooms?
7.
7-bedroom boat, worth about how much?
20 million.
20 million.
Scott went on to explain just how much this lifestyle was costing him.
My monthly overhead for my household employees was somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million a month I was spending.
And that if he continued to work, there wouldn't have been any problems, although this...
Alright, again, see, now I'm thinking that, first of all, money is a concept in this world, right? Like how Elon Musk was one time saying it, like, oh, look at that, I'm richest man in the world. That's changing how? Because his worth, like people saw his worth more and more, so his stocks went high. Not that his money poured into account much better or something. No, he still had the same money he had a week ago, but now his stocks, his SpaceX, his Tesla was worth more. People saw his worth more, which could change in a month. So he could be richer for a month, but he didn't see any difference. And after a month, he's maybe poorer. So that's the thing. This producer, these people, how much money, how much liquid money they had at the point. Because they could be thinking like, I'm worth this much. My label is worth this much, right? They would have a certain number. And based on that, they would spend certain money. Like, oh, I'm fine. They didn't have that money. It was their thing, their worth. But that could plummet in a week or two, depending on anything, depending on even some scandal or news. So I think something like that probably happened to these people. Because no way they're like, oh, I have $500,000 in my account and I'm going to spend 70% of that because fuck it, I don't care. I don't think they did that. I think their worth fluctuated and that's what caused issue.
This isn't what he would do.
It went from me working and delivering to doing drugs and not going to the studio.
I just stopped working, and then I got depressed and jaded.
As mentioned, Scott stopped making music and instead began to get addicted to the nightlife in Miami. And with no money coming in plus $1 million a month going out, it was only going to be so long before Scott hit zero. By 2009, just 3 years after having a net worth of $70 million, Scott had filed for bankruptcy. 6 years later, Scott would file for bankruptcy a second time, claiming to have a grand total of $3,600 of assets to his name, $100 in cash, $500 in clothing, and a $3,000 watch. Most shocking, his music companies are valued at $0, and in 2014 he made a grand total of only $10,000. Throughout this hardship, Fat Joe was one of the only rappers to keep their friendship with Scott, possibly because Fat Joe went through a similar situation himself. Fat Joe had earned $1.18 million in 2007, $1.28 million in 2008, $250,000 $665,000 in 2009 and $630,000 in 2010. However, despite having made this $3.3 million in only 4 years, Fat Joe failed to pay taxes on it. He was able to come up with $718,000 and had also done extensive charity work. However, this wasn't enough to satisfy the judge, who sentenced Fat Joe to 4 months in prison. Despite taking personal responsibility for his actions by stating, "There was a lot going on in the years that I didn't file my taxes, but it was my responsibility," less than 4 years later, Fat Joe entered news headlines again after the IRS revealed that he still owed them $1.1 million in taxes. However, this number was absolutely nothing in comparison to Fat Joe's friend Lil Kim, who owed almost 4 times more and became, quote, too poor to file for bankruptcy. Lil Kim wasn't nearly as successful as some of the other rappers featured on this list. However, this didn't stop her from purchasing a $2.3 million mansion back in 2002, notably with the help of a mortgage.
It's 7:20 already, the kickoff's in 5 minutes.
One thing is definitely a trend. They had this money and that's it. A mansion, 2 mansions, 4 or 5 luxury cars, a Rolls Royce, 1 helicopter, 2 jets. Fuck it. That's the problem.
In the 2000s, Kim's music career slowed dramatically, and by 2018, Kim was filing for bankruptcy as she still owed the full $2 million on her property, despite the 16 years that had passed. In addition to this, Kim now owed $1.85 million to the government for 13 years worth of unpaid taxes, which accompanied a further $185,000 in unpaid legal fees. The bankruptcy became even worse after discovering that by 2018, Kim was earning a comparatively small $18,000 per month, of which $2,000 went to staff, another $2,000 went to clothing, and $10,000 went to travel fees, meaning she had less than $4,000 per month to dig herself out of $4 million worth of debt. Somehow Lil Kim managed to, quote, get her finances into good shape, and her bankruptcy filing was dismissed. However, MC Hammer wasn't quite so lucky. Despite having the 5th best-selling hip-hop album of all time, which sold 17 million copies and featured songs such as You Can't Touch This, MC Hammer wasn't able to stay out of financial trouble. He bought more than 17 luxury cars, a private jet, 2 helicopters, and 21 racehorses. Some of the horses were valued at around $1 million. Most of his expenses, however, were on his home. He bought a property in Fremont, California for $12 million and spent another $30 million on renovations to turn it into his dream home. He added a bowling alley, basketball court, baseball field, recording studio, movie theater, 17-car garage, tennis courts, and 2 swimming pools to the 40,000 square foot mansion. One of the pools was shaped like his signature baggy pants that came to be known as Hammer Pants. He added several marble statues of himself throughout the property and installed a gold hot tub in his bedroom. And to keep everything running smoothly, he
that marble statue is the one that sticks out after all that. They're like, fuck it, I'm gonna have marble statues about me. Yeah, that's what happened when your song and catchphrase becomes so big that you literally think you're a god or something.
A staff of nearly 200 people on the property, which cost him an estimated $500,000 a month. Unsurprisingly, less than 5 years later, MC Hammer had filed for bankruptcy, at which point it would be revealed that he hadn't only spent his entire $70 million fortune, but had also taken on a further $13 million in loans, which had been borrowed from over 200 different lending institutions. Despite having spent a total of $42 million on his California dream home, the property resold for only $6.5 million. However, if we're on the topic of expensive homes being repossessed by the bank, we need
MC Hammer, I don't care how much album he sold. This is one of those things where someone's one album, one song becomes too famous and shit like this happen. If you're someone who just sells album after album for a long time, at least in then I can understand. Like you can have one hit song, one hit video or whatever. Can you do it for 10 straight of them, right? Your one album can sell for 17 million, but it would be better if your next 10 or 20 albums sells for just a few million. That would be better. It would be consistency.
To talk about Birdman, who's ranked as the 15th richest rapper in the world with a net worth of $110 million. But this is what makes Birdman's story unique. If he was worth over $100 million, why was his Miami mansion being repossessed by the bank for non-payment? Birdman had purchased the home back in 2012 for $14.5 million, yet by 2017 a foreclosure suit had been filed by the bank and, quote, all personal items within the home, including platinum records gracing the walls, a pool table, and dozens of pairs of shoes were all confiscated and placed in storage. The mansion was eventually sold by the bank for $10.85 million in July 2020. However, Birdman's lawyer has come out to explain the foreclosure, stating that it was the result of illegal loan terms set by the bank, so perhaps take Birdman's bankruptcy with a grain of salt. However, there's no ambiguity around how T-Pain went broke, as he's now come on multiple podcasts to explain just how brutal his bankruptcy was. T-Pain had built up a net worth of over $40 million at his peak in 2007, with all of his closest rap friends advising him that as long as he kept rapping, the money would keep on coming in.
Yeah, at the start of 21st century, right, in 2000s, T-Pain was kind of a big thing, right? Everybody heard about T-Pain, everybody was hearing T-Pain's song, that auto-tune voice, whatever that was. So T-Pain is like kind of like a big in that way, because it's not just one or two songs, many songs of his. And even the feature, he was featured in lots of songs that were kind of a hit.
Everybody before me that I had to look up to, they were just like, no, this is great. Once you start rapping, it's just money all the time. Nothing bad's ever gonna happen. Your family's not gonna come after you. Just rap, and it's just girls and swimming pools after this.
For this reason, his spending began to get out of control.
I bought my Bugatti.
You bought it for $2.1 million.
$2.1 million.
And then you, very shortly thereafter, you sold it for, all they gave you was $800,000.
Yeah.
So it was like renting a car for $1.3 million.
Yeah.
With the purchase of his Bugatti accompanying a $400,000 chain and houses for his workmates.
I got this house I want to get. I got this other house for my assistants and, you know, all my runners and my producers and stuff. So we bought a house after that, and we just started going crazy with the money. I wasn't paying attention to it.
Which was extra bad, as T-Pain never even checked in on how much money he had.
I didn't want to know, because I was led to believe that it's only gonna grow. Because these rappers told me that I'm just gonna make money forever. It's just gonna keep going up and up.
In the process, T-Pain began to create less music, and within a few years, his accountant was advising him that he was almost out of money.
My accountant was like, dude, you're like out of money. And I was like, no, I'm not.
And while T-Pain seemed confident that he had plenty of cash left, reality set in for him after he'd have to borrow money just to buy food.
When you say you was broke, was you had like $0 broke?
I had to borrow money to get my kids Burger King.
What's the most you ever had in the bank at one time?
40 million.
However, T-Pain was lucky to get away with a loss of only 40 million, as the final person on our
I'm
list.
not gonna lie, having 40 million in your bank account, that's kind of a big thing, because even rich people don't have liquid money like that. They are invested somewhere in stocks, in their companies or whatever. So going from 40 million that you can just cash out, basically from 40 million to nothing, not even money for burger, that's a big shit, right? And look, I don't know. I don't want to go too soft on people, because when he says like somebody told me they were just going to make money and I didn't want to check bank account, I didn't want to know how much money I had, that's just stupid. That's just immensely stupid, regardless of who you are. If you're working like that, you should stop and think about like, am I smart? What is my IQ? Because it doesn't matter who you are, you need to know how much money you're spending, even if you're spending ridiculously. Even if you have this mentality like, I'm going to make money forever, you're still going to check. Otherwise, easily people basically who works for him would take advantage of that, right? Would encourage you to spend more needlessly, which probably was the case with T-Pain. That's just fucked up, man.
This makes this
he had some IQ. Even though he went bankrupt, I guess, stood back up again, because he knew what to do. 50 Cent might be many things, but he's somewhat smart. Because even he filed for bankruptcy, I remember him posting photos with the, lot of cash, like Breaking Bad or something, just spelling things out with a, bundle of cash and things. So it wasn't completely, bankrupt or something. It was some kind of a play in there. But yeah.
Number look like loose change. 50 Cent. 50 didn't only release the 10th best-selling American hip-hop album of all time, but he also made over $100 million on a vitamin water investment, plus a further $78 million from a luxury underwear deal. In the late 2000s, 50 Cent made an estimated $300 million in only 2 years, so when it announced that he was filing for bankruptcy in mid-2015, with debts totaling over $32 million, the entire world was thinking the same thing. How did this happen? Well, after 50 Cent uploaded a sex tape with Rick Ross's girlfriend, 50 was successfully sued for $7 million, which accompanied another court order for 50 Cent to pay $17 million to a headphone manufacturer after one of their collabs went sour. 50 Cent's clothing company G-Unit Clothing then fell out of the spotlight, which accompanied the closing of his movie company G-Unit Productions, as well as his boxing company SMS Promotions. Throughout the whole process, the global financial crisis had taken a toll on the value of 50 Cent's investments, and by 2015, he was earning a comparatively small $185,000 per month. You could certainly argue that this was enough for 50 to get back on his feet. However, $108,000 of this monthly income was going toward an 18-bedroom mega mansion, while the remaining $77,000 was going toward menial expenses such as his gardener, with bankruptcy documents revealing that 50 Cent still owed money to his stylist, fitness coach, and even his barber. Despite this, he began to troll on social media with posts such as this one, spelling out the word broke with $100 bills, and within 2 years, 50 Cent had paid back $23 million worth of his $32 million debt. 50 Cent eventually got back to zero, and according to Google, has built up a net worth of $40 million over the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think he probably has more than that now, more than 40 million, just not disclosed money, because I think he learned after that. He's going to need something at the side as well. Yeah, 50 is doing more than fine now. But yeah, overall, seriously, man, everybody knows about this, right? Rappers, hip-hop stars spending needlessly. That's one of the joking thing that everybody knows about. So it's not surprising, but still it's ridiculous. Alright people, that was rappers who went broke into the stupidest ways by the channel Sunny V2. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.